Hi, I'm Dana, and I'm excited to share with you my work over the past year on a feasibility study for a community-scale pilot composting program for the town of Crested Butte. Most people don't believe me when I tell them that I have a certification in composting. Don't believe me either? Here it is, framed and signed by the mayor of Denver. Some might ask, what in the world drives a person to get a certification in composting? Thanks, guys. That's the sound of the roughly 6,000 tons of organic materials that were sent to the Gunnison County landfill in 2020 that could have been composted had a composting program been available. What a waste. In 2019, I was informed that the town of Crested Butte was looking for someone to research a potential pilot composting program for the Gunnison Valley in their goals to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and landfill contributions. Around this time, Crested Butte published their 2019 Climate Action Plan, and in it committed to requiring community-wide composting by 2025. The Gunnison Valley community had also come together and decided that they would like to reach a 50% organic waste diversion rate in the valley by 2030. With all of this in mind, I jumped on a networking opportunity with the town, and not long after, I was hired to write a feasibility study for Crested Butte on potential composting program opportunities and best community-scale composting practices in Colorado. After receiving IRB approval, I interviewed 12 composting operations, ranging from small backyard composters to large municipal programs across Colorado for my research. I also sent these interviewees a survey to capture more quantitative data. I informally consulted a few other organizations, analyzed my data, and wrote a comprehensive feasibility study that recommended community-scale composting options for the town. Here's what I found out. Colorado has 33 composting commercial facilities registered with the Colorado Department of Public Health and the Environment, or CDPHE. Of those 33, the Western Slope lays claim to just 9 of those facilities. Gunnison, shown by the arrow on the map, lies in what some might call a composting desert. There are no commercial composting facilities within close range of the Gunnison Valley. There are, however, some smaller scale composting projects going on in the area. Crested Butte South has a small program that currently has approximately 25 participants. Mountain Roots Food Project has 3 community drop sites in Gunnison that community members may utilize free of charge. Both wastewater treatment plants in Gunnison and Crested Butte compost their biosolids. And finally, a new company has emerged near Crested Butte that has added a curbside pickup composting service to their portfolio. More on that later. In my feasibility study, I included some common themes around best practices and major barriers in Colorado composting, so that as Crested Butte moves forward with their program, they can do so with the best current methods and prepare for significant challenges. Most commonly, community-scale pilot programs begin as a CESQ, a conditionally exempt small quantity generator. This type of composting facility requires the least amount of regulation, allows communities to pilot at a smaller scale with fewer waste streams, and costs the least. Once demand grows and they have a structure in place, they will often apply for a Class 3 designation, the largest composting designation available. A common practice for these programs was to focus on incorporating household or commercial participants at the beginning, but not both. Interestingly, a couple of programs recommended avoiding approaching commercial participants, such as restaurants right now, as many of them are attempting to recover economically from the COVID-19 pandemic. People who compost love to compost. It was my personal observation that most of these programs were run by people who are passionate about composting and recognize the value in the waste we're sending to the landfills. I called these managers composting champions. Other common practices in starting a community-scale composting program are to initially limit the amount of accepted waste streams, purchase enough land, partner with community organizations, and engage with participants. There are also some significant barriers to starting or growing a Colorado community composting program, and I asked my interviewees to share these with me. The most common answer was CDPHE regulation navigation. Most programs communicated a lack of knowledge or just general intimidation about the CDPHE regulations, and this prevents them from starting or growing their programs. Composting programs hear that the regulations are complicated and expensive. They are wary of remaining within Colorado regulations and will often choose compliance over growth. Other major barriers included space constraints, funding, socio-political barriers, land, and staff capacity. Crested Butte has the opportunity to partake in a public-private partnership, which both benefits a private company financially, but also benefits the city by increasing capacity to offer a public service. The maintenance company has already begun a curbside pickup compost service in Crested Butte. They expressed excitement to talk about growing into a partnership with the town. Thunder Mountain Organics, or more commonly known as 3XM, is a Class 3 commercial composting facility that recently opened in Olathe, Colorado. They offer a hauling service and are currently managing Crested Butte Mountain Resort's organic waste stream. Crested Butte could potentially contract with them to haul organic material to their composting facility. Waste Management, Crested Butte's current waste hauler, offers compost hauling as a regular service. However, the company must have a Waste Management approved site within the region in order to take the organic materials. And finally, Compost Colorado, an organics management company located on the Front Range, has expressed interest in providing turnkey anaerobic digestion infrastructure for Crested Butte. This proposal is in its infancy, and more research is needed on this public-private partnership. Probably the most pressing question of this feasibility study is, should Crested Butte take on constructing a regional composting facility? To build a CESQ facility, the initial costs over roughly 5 years would be $20,000 to $66,000. The pros of beginning with this facility type are that the town would need to procure less land, would have less of an upfront cost, and would be able to troubleshoot with just a few waste streams. Unfortunately, it's easy as a municipal program to outgrow this model. A Class 3 facility, on the other hand, would likely require at least $3 million of capital investment. The benefits of this model are that the composting operation is more permanent, regional, and the city is unlikely to outgrow this model. Construction of a facility this size, however, is costly, technical, requires large amounts of land, and extensive permitting. The research from this feasibility study amounted to 3 recommendations for the town of Crested Butte. Firstly, investigate and invest in existing infrastructure. Can the town financially bolster and assist already existing waste management programs to navigate the barriers of accepting food waste for composting? Secondly, and most likely, is invest in a public-private partnership. There are several opportunities to contract with a private company within the valley. This would certainly be the most turnkey solution to Crested Butte's community-wide composting goals. Crested Butte should consider the carbon emissions of hauling organic waste out of the valley into perpetuity. It should also be noted that the cost of waste hauling overall are forecasted to significantly increase with the new Little Blue Canyon construction project on Highway 50 between Gunnison and Montrose. Finally, the last recommendation is to construct a CESQ or Class 3 composting facility. While this is the most logistically demanding and expensive option, constructing a composting facility for regional purposes would have an element of permanence that the other 2 recommendations do not have, and it would eliminate the composting desert that the Gunnison Valley sits in. I'd like to share with you just a few pieces of advice that my interviewees asked me to pass on to Crested Butte as they create a community composting program. Some major programs emphasized procuring the right amount of space, engaging the public early on in a robust way, purchasing quality equipment up front, and finally, starting small to get it right just before diving in. There is not enough time or space to acknowledge all the people who participated in my personal and professional growth during my time in the MEM, but please know that you all have my deepest gratitude. Thank you.